Hello everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Now that Twilight Masquerade has dropped on Pokemon Live, I'm going to preview the new Greninja EX Froslass deck, which has already seen a bit of success in the Japanese city leagues. The idea of the deck is that you use Froslass's ability, Freezing Shroud, to build up damage on your opponent's side of the field, and that synergizes quite well with Greninja, who's an energy efficient attacker and can mop up prizes to close out the game. Just to go over those cards in terms of what they do in a bit more detail, Froslass's ability puts 1 damage counter on each Pokemon that has an ability, including yours and your opponent's during Pokemon checkup. So if your opponent has a Pokemon with an ability in play, and you have 2 Froslass on your side of the field, that'll be 2 damage counters going into their turn, and then 2 damage counters coming back into your turn. So the damage can rack up pretty quickly with multiple Froslass in play. In terms of Greninja, it has 2 attacks. The first is for 1 water, it does 170 damage and allows you to search your deck for any card and put it into your hand. So it's not a huge damage, but it is energy efficient and it is at least 2-shotting stage 2 X's. The effect of being able to search for any card helps you set up as well. The real power of the deck comes from the second attack, Mirage Barrage, which allows you to do 120 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. So in the mid to late game, if you've been able to establish your Froslass early, there's a good chance there's a lot of damage on your opponent's side of the field, and you can use this Mirage Barrage attack to knock out 2 Pokemon and take up to 4 prizes in 1 turn to close out the game. The usual blocker for decks that do bench damage like this is Manaphy. Most decks play a copy of this card which prevents all bench damage, but luckily this deck has the inbuilt counter, which is Froslass. Because Manaphy has an ability, the damage counters from Froslass will still apply, and therefore you can knock out a Manaphy in 2 turns if you have 2 Froslass in play. So that's the deck at a high level. Next I'm just going to go through some of the card counts and give a bit of context. So we've got a thick Greninja EX line, it's a 4-2-3 line because that's our main attacker. You arguably could drop down to a 4-1-3 line, but because I'm playing the TM Evolution, I prefer to have the second stage 1 just in case it gets stuck in your hand or it's prized. Additionally, we're also playing a split of Frogadiers because one does paralysis and the other one does a bit more damage. Then we've got a 4-3 Froslass line. Again, I think it's really important with this deck to get your Froslass established early. The games where you're able to get more than 1 Froslass in play early, it has such a big impact on the game. So again, we're just playing a high count to increase the odds of that. Other support Pokemon, we have 1 Cleffa just for the draw power with Grasping Draw. You could play Rotom V, but it doesn't synergize with the deck very well because Froslass will put damage counters on your own Rotom V, and there are ways to remove it from play with Clap Stadium and Turros, but I'd prefer not to deal with that, so I'm playing the Cleffa instead. And then lastly we have our own Manaphy to prevent bench damage. Again, Froslass's ability will put damage counters on our own Manaphy, so we need to be careful when we play this, but it is necessary for certain matchups. Moving on to the trainers then, I've got a fairly standard lineup for a stage 2 deck. I've got the 4 Arven, 4 Buddy Buddy Poffin and 1 TM Evolution, just to get set up. We've got the 3 Irida. I kind of see this as a less good Arven, because Greninja's not a water type Pokemon, it's a Terra fighting type, so you can't search for a Greninja and a Rare Candy, but it still can be useful to search for the Frogadiers and the Froslass. And again, this deck doesn't really have any inbuilt draw, so you kind of need to play a high support account. That's why we've got the 4 Arven and the 3 Irida and the 4 Iono. There is an argument to play a Roxanne, but I just think that card's a bit situational and rather have the 4th Iono just so that we can generate cards when we need them. I've got 1 Turros just because Greninja attacks for 1 energy, so you can cycle them if you need to, and it also allows you to pick up your own mana fee if you're putting damage counters on it. Lastly then we have the boss's orders. So I just have 1 boss's orders, which I think is okay when you're playing 1 counter catcher and 1 prime catcher, so there's basically 3 gusting cards there, which is potentially a bit low, but I found it seems to work, especially given that you've got a sniping attack, so you don't always need the gust. In terms of trainers then, again it's fairly standard. We've got the 4 Buddy Buddy Puffin, 4 Rare Candy, just to increase the odds of getting that Greninja early, 3 Ultra Ball just for a bit of consistency, 2 Earthen Vessel just because you're playing quite a low count of energy, and quite often you find yourself needing to Irida or Arven for Earthen Vessel to get an energy, so I'd just rather play the 2 instead of 1 in case it gets prized. 1 counter catch, which we covered, 1 Devolution because you're playing a spread deck, so it just makes sense, 1 Super Rod is standard, 1 Evolution is standard for a stage 2 deck, 3 Nest Balls again are just to try and increase the odds of getting the Froslass established early, so getting the Snorant into play. 1 Rescue Board just helps increase the odds of getting a Greninja attack turn 2. So if you start with Snorant or a Snorant or a Manaphy, for example, then you can easily search out the Rescue Board with Arven to get Greninja into the active early on. And then the 1 Prime Catcher. So there's probably an argument for playing different ace specs. There's the Aroma card, which just came out, but I thought that was a bit situational, even though it is potentially quite strong in this deck with needing to search out the Froslass, but it doesn't help you get the Snorants or the Furkies into play in the first place, so I did prefer the Prime Catcher, but certainly you could try different ace specs in here. So 2 double turbo energy, just because you generally only use the Mirage Barrage once a game, so I find 2 to be enough, especially since you can search it out with the first attack Shinobi Blade. And then again we've got a low count of Water Energy, 5 Water Energy complemented by the 2 Earthen Vessel, which I generally find to be enough from game to game. So that's the early list. It's not, it does need a bit of work, but it's not a bad starting point. And yeah, so let's move on to some games. Alright, so that's us into a game. We are staring down a Miraidon EX, so this is likely a sort of Iron Hands electric deck. The good news for us is that Greninja, despite being a water Pokemon, is Terra fighting, so it's not actually weak to lightning. We've got the Arven for the Buddy Buddy Puffin. We've got the energy for the Eva as well. So it looks like they've got 3 Pokemon in play with abilities. Also note that we do knock out Iron Hands with Greninja's first attack because it's weak to fighting. Okay, so my opponent has just benched 4 Pokemon with abilities, which does open up the door for a Mirage Barrage play later on, assuming we can get our Froslass out. So let's bench that Snorant, let's Arven for a Buddy Buddy Puffin and an Evo. Just check the prizes quickly. We've prized 2 Greninja. Okay, that's interesting. So let's go with it. We want to need some energy as well. I don't really want to get rid of the Froslass. Good alternative is going to Cleffa. We do have 2 Froslass in the deck. So yeah, I think it probably is Prime Catcher, unfortunately. Slightly is something will get knocked out next turn, I think. So I think getting rid of 1 Froslass isn't a bad idea. Okay, let's get the Evo, touch energy, and we'll evolution. Alright, so next time we've got the Greninja Prime Catcher plate. You can see we've got the damage building up already, which is good. If they're able to get the generators online, it's possible they get a amp you very much. Yeah, that's with the first generator. So, yep, 2 energies. So, they need another generator, they've got the double turbo, so they've got an amp you very much. So the good news about this deck is that we do get a return knockout. Hopefully they don't get the baton. Okay. So I'm gonna evolve into Greninja, get the energy attachment down. We probably want to Irida just to get another Frogadier in play. And then I'll grab the Snorunt. I don't think this deck can snipe. There is a Zapdos that can. I think I'm okay for now though. So I'll grab the Snorunts, play the Irida, get Frogadier. The only thing we don't have is energy, so I'll just grab one of those. And I shall Shinobi Blade and grab possibly an Iono. Maybe an Irida. Yeah, we don't have another Greninja, do we? So just gonna grab an Irida. We'll get 2 prizes here, so we've got enough discard if we want to grab an Ultra Ball off the Irida. We didn't get a Greninja off the prizes, which is bad news. So we need to make sure that this Greninja, we need to hope this Greninja doesn't somehow get knocked out. I think the only way it could get knocked out is through a big Raichu play. Okay, now I can see that